In the mid to late 80s, Michael Jordan quickly became a world-famous NBA athlete. This quick rise in popularity led to a shoe deal with Nike very early on. However, Nike wasn't the only company to see the profit potential in Michael Jordan. Video game companies soon followed suit to put out products with Jordan's name on it, with the hopes of a huge profit margin. Today, we look at the second game sporting this legendary basketball player's name, Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City. One video game company to jump on the Michael Jordan bandwagon was Electronic Arts. In 1988, EA released their first game featuring Jordan titled Jordan vs. Bird 1-on-1. As the title suggests, this was a one-on-one match between Jordan and Larry Bird, with 2 minigames included. The following year, EA released the first game in their series, NBA Playoffs. This series allowed the player to pick from one of 16 teams that competed in the playoffs the previous year. In 1992, the Chicago Bulls made it into the playoffs, and subsequently were featured in the second game of the series. However, after the release of NBA Playoffs, Bulls vs. Blazers, Michael Jordan dropped out of the Players Association license and started negotiating his own deals. This led to the creation of Michael Jordan In Flight, released in 1993. Developed yet again by Electronic Arts, In Flight was a DOS game that featured a 3-on-3 match. The players appeared to be on a court floating in a black abyss and used a 3D camera to see what's going on. Computer Gaming World stated that In Flight was graphically ahead of its time, but would have been better if those graphics were applied to an actual game.
Once we get the real video footage in there that we shot today, it's going to look, as close as it can to real TV.
Because Jordan left the Players Association, In Flight featured no NBA players or teams. Next on the chopping block was Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City, which was released in 1994. While it may seem impressive that Electronic Arts was able to make 2 different games in 2 years, their quality would be a giveaway to the quick turnarounds. The timing on these games is also quite weird. He decided to release 2 basketball games in the years where he left the NBA to play baseball. It makes sense in a way, since he's well known in the NBA, but you would have thought he would have stuck around for a little bit longer to add some promotion for his games. Chaos in the Windy City was released in Europe in March of 1995 by Ocean. Coincidentally, the same month and year Jordan decided to go back to the NBA. Ocean was a British video game developing and publishing company and was later acquired by Infogrames. Ocean was best known for Worms, WWF WrestleMania, and the RoboCop series. The only notable person to have worked on Chaos in the Windy City was video game designer Amy Hennig. Hennig is credited for directing Jak and Daxter 3, along with directing and writing the Uncharted series. Hennig left Naughty Dog in 2014 during the development of Uncharted 4. She then rejoined EA under Visceral Games to work on an unnamed Star Wars game. However, her future with the company is uncertain after EA shut down Visceral Games in 2017. Starting a new game prompts a pretty unique comic book style intro that explains the story. Michael Jordan shows up to a practice space to find his team has disappeared. Out of nowhere, a basketball crashes through a skylight with a note on it. He's instructed that if he wants to save his friends, he needs to meet the antagonist of the game, Dr. Max Cranium, in a museum. Later that night, a guard lets Michael into a closed museum, because he's Michael Jordan, and there's nothing suspicious about wanting to go into museums so late at night. While examining the Egyptian room, he notices a door on the wall which leads to an underground prison. While we can tear this story apart just based on its unoriginal concept, we do appreciate that they provide it to us in such a short and clever way with a very unique art style. As for graphics, this game looks exactly as you would expect a 90s Super Nintendo platformer to look. You would think with a comic book style intro and an overall wacky concept for a game that the art style would be unique, but then you'd be wrong. The same can be said for the music. It's very generic and does nothing to stand out on a system which has some of the greatest video game soundtracks of all time. When you start playing the game, you quickly realize that you're just playing another action platformer with a few neat features. The game is split into 4 main areas: the holding cells, a laboratory, a factory, and an amusement park. Extra levels can be played in between the main areas, which include running along a train to fight off the paparazzi. It's up to us to navigate our way through the maze-like levels and find one of our teammates. Similar to ToeJam and Earl, at the start of a level you'll be told if a captive resides in the area or not, but finding them is no easy task. In order to find these teammates, you'll have to first find the keys to unlock their doors, which is primarily your only goal of this game. Collecting keys. There are several kinds of keys: silver, gold, and a multitude of other colors. The silver and gold keys can be used to open the silver and gold doors respectively, which is where you'll find your teammates. However, the colored keys will turn off traps or turn on an elevator to help you get by an obstacle. To get through every level, it's usually required to find all of the keys. The levels can get very confusing, and you can often get turned around or not see where you're supposed to go. This leads to a lot of backtracking trying to figure out where you've been and where you need to go. Even finding the exit is often confusing, since it's never clearly labeled or represented as an exit. Finding a teammate will give you some dialogue to further the story, along with 3 questions you can ask them in order to get more information. As with the intro, the dialogue is weak and feels like a very low effort. Michael's form of attack is to throw basketballs at the enemies. You get unlimited ammo, but can occasionally find power-ups to temporarily upgrade your basketball. These power-ups include a rebound ball, which allows the ball to bounce off walls, a flame ball, and an ice ball, which are both self-explanatory just to name a few. Each power-up also has another function if you spike the ball, which we weren't aware of while playing. This gives you multiple ways to handle the enemies. Throughout each level, you'll also run into Gatorade bottles, Wheaties boxes, a heart which will restore health, a golden heart that increases the number of hits you can take, and a pair of high-top shoes that grant you temporary invincibility. These items range from common drops such as the Gatorade bottles to a very rare drop on the golden heart. You'll also be able to collect coins as well. These can be found by slam dunking hoops, killing enemies, and opening doors. As with every game out there that allows you to easily collect these sorts of things, getting 100 will net you an extra life. That is, unless you find a rare golden number 23 icon, which will automatically give you an extra life. As with any basketball game, the coolest thing you could do is slam dunk the ball. Luckily, the developers thought of a unique way to do this without it seeming too repetitive. There are 5 different types of hoops represented by different backboards attached to them. These range from giving you awards such as power-ups, coins, or keys, to helping you clear out or freeze the enemies on the screen. These, along with the basketball power-ups, work well in a tricky situation and are well placed throughout each level. However, there is one backboard that makes things a little frustrating, and that's the milestone backboard, which is represented by a square pane of glass that shatters when you slam dunk it. This acts as a checkpoint in the level in case you happen to die, which is always nice to have because you'll soon realize there's no f***ing save feature in this game. Instead, you're given an 11-digit password every so often at the end of a level, which you'll have to input if you run out of lives or want to come back to it later on. This is quite confusing to us. The save feature was around during this time, and I can't understand why it was never implemented. We understand that not every game needs a save feature, but it seems like a technology that was convenient enough to put into this game. The enemies in this game are often more of a nuisance than a challenge. These enemies range from a zombie with a basketball for a head, to flying eyeballs, spiders, and a whistle, just to name a few. Unfortunately, there are very few new enemies that show up during your playthrough, which makes it very hard to get excited for each new level. After struggling to enjoy making it through all these levels, you'll make it to the final boss. This fight is broken up into 3 mini fights before actually fighting Dr. Cranium. You first have to beat a basketball man which resembles the Michelin Man, a Frankenstein knockoff, and a robotic frog with screws for legs. If you can make it past all of these, then it's time to face off with Dr. Cranium on the basketball court, as if it would be anywhere else. Dr. Cranium is a giant basketball playing robot, and he pretty much just runs back and forth trying to jump on you. As far as final bosses go, this is one of the easier ones we've had to face, as long as you're patient. However, just like the rest of the game, the final boss is pretty unremarkable. Michael Jordan has accomplished so much in his life, from a multitude of awards to even having a section of Madison Street in Chicago named after him. He's the definition of success. But with success comes a lot of failures, and his attempt at getting games out with his name on it has proved to be one of those failures. We went into this game not expecting much, and that's exactly what we got. There was just too much repetition to really keep our attention. If it wasn't for this show, we would have been done with this game after about 20 minutes. It was absolute torture just to get through it. It's quite relieving to know that we weren't alone feeling this way either. Next Generation has stated, kudos for the original concept, but Jordan should have stuck with basketball. And Nintendo Power rated it 7th worst of all time out of 10 games, citing, the game was not too poor, but was a waste of a license. Although there were a few cool ideas, Overall, the game is boring, and those few cool ideas aren't enough to sustain our attention. And it's because of this that we have to say that this game does not hold up. And we're glad that Michael Jordan realized this as well, and he hasn't continued to force himself into more games. Wow!